Previously on the Chosen People.
It's just Lord Moses hasn't come back yet. It's been over a month. We're starting to wonder, what if he doesn't come back? Make us a god, Lord Aaron. The people need it, or they'll lose heart. Maybe our God will put Moses' spirit inside it, and it'll inspire the people as Moses did.
Go and spread the word to all who share your concerns. Bring me gold, a supply of gold. With this gold I will do as you ask. Take the gold rings from the ears of your wives, your sons, your daughters, and bring them to me.
What are you thinking, Uncle?
Calm down, They only want a symbol to guide them. Moses' presence is a comfort to them, and I don't blame them. Look at all we've been through. They're still going to be worshipping our God.
There was no mistaking the animal he'd shaped. The calf stood about 2 feet tall and 3 feet long. Tobiah approached, inspecting it closely before turning to the crowd and shouting in triumph,
Israel, this is your God, who brought you up from the land of Egypt.
The next day, they did as Aaron had instructed, offering burnt offerings before the golden calf. Food and wine flowed, and by midday, the camp's mood swelled to a fever pitch like a wartime victory, but quickly descended into chaos.
It is not an idol, it's a symbol!
Call it what you want. The result will be the same. And I will not play a part in it. Come on, we need to get out of here.
What you're doing isn't right, Tobiah. What all of you are doing is evil. This is forbidden in the eyes of our God. How quickly do you forget your promises and forsake your oaths?
A stone found Hur's temple and sent him flying onto the floor. Blood sprang from his temple. He sprang up to escape, but was quickly grabbed by Tobiah and tossed into the crowd. They bound him and threw him beside one of the bonfires.
My baby, no!
Aaron caught Miriam's arm as she rushed forward, holding her back as horror gripped them both. Blood pooled beneath Hur's head, and for a long moment they stood frozen, breath caught, watching his body battered by the mob. When the air finally tore back into Aaron's lungs, he pulled his wailing sister away, icy panic pushing him through the crowd. They had to escape, to wait out the madness somewhere safe. But as he dragged Miriam from the scene, he wondered if there was any coming back from this. In his heart, he knew they hadn't seen the last of the violence. He knew he had made a grave mistake.
The ship's drifting out of control. Get out of there now.
What happened? His cord snapped. Some called it impossible.
Okay, Dave, I don't know where I am.
Others call it a miracle.
He's not. No, he's not.
Focus Features presents the inspirational true story
I got an idea
that kept the world breathless.
This isn't working.
You can do this, buddy.
Starring Woody Harrelson.
Now!
And Simu Liu.
I'm not losing a diver today.
Last Breath, based on a true story. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. Only in theaters this Friday.
In the shadows of Sinai, idols rise where faith falters. Shalom, my friends, from here in the Holy Land of Israel. I'm Yael Eckstein with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Welcome to the Chosen People. We find ourselves at the foot of Mount Sinai, where God has spoken and his laws have been etched in stone. Our ancestors, the Israelites, face a choice between God's covenant and their own temptations. As we listen to this story, let's ask ourselves, how do we remain faithful when God feels far away?
This is Jenny Garth from I Do Part 2. Everyone's talking about GLP-1s, like Ozempic, semaglutide. With Future Health, you can find out if they're right for you, too. Just go to tryfh.com, that's tryfh.com, and find out if weight loss meds are right for you in just 3 minutes. Future Health is not a healthcare services provider. Meds are prescribed at provider's discretion. Results may vary. Sponsored by Future Health.
The battlefield is set. The stakes are high. The only thing standing between you and victory? Nothing. Ascend to the pinnacle of gaming greatness with Lenovo Legion. Laptops, towers, and the new award-winning Legion Go, the world's first officially licensed handheld, powered by Steam OS. Legion relentlessly pushes gaming technology forward, with towers built for raw, untamed power, laptops with best-in-class AI tuning that sharpen your reflexes, and the Legion Go, a handheld for serious gaming on the go. Stay ahead with lightning-fast responsiveness on a stunning 16-inch PureSight display. Keep your cool with cold front thermal technology engineered for marathon sessions. And with all-day battery life, the game never stops until you say so. So check out Lenovo.com/Legion. Lenovo. Empowering creators everywhere.
The ship's drifting out of control. Get out of there now.
What happened?
His cord snapped. Some called it impossible.
Okay, Dave, I don't know where I am.
Others call it a miracle.
He's not. No, he's not.
Focus Features presents the inspirational true story
I got an idea.
that kept the world breathless.
This isn't working.
You can do this, buddy.
Starring Woody Harrelson
Now!
and Simu Liu.
I'm not losing a diver today.
Last Breath, based on a true story. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. Only in theaters this Friday.
Moses sat enraptured, as he had for days, listening to the Lord's vision for their young nation, the instructions and precepts that would become his people's law, setting them apart from every other nation. As God spoke, his words appeared on the stone tablets as if an invisible hand inscribed them. Moses had never seen anything like it. Hunger and thirst felt distant, too faint to pull him from his place before God. Then, breaking the majestic sight before him, was a deafening silence. Startled by the suddenness, Moses straightened, realizing his God had stopped speaking, and wondering what caused the interruption.
Go down at once. Your people, whom you brought up from Egypt, have acted corruptly. They have quickly turned away from the way I commanded them, making an image of a golden calf. They have bowed down to it, sacrificed to it, and declared, Israel, these are your gods who brought you up from Egypt.
Moses' heart sank. As if reading his very mind, the Lord broke through Moses' grief.
I have seen these people, and they are indeed a stiff-necked people.
An image sprang to Moses' mind, an ox under its yoke, tossing its head, resisting the reins, refusing its master's commands.
These people, treacherous, defiant, petulant children. Is their memory so short? Have you not lifted the yoke of oppression from them, provided their every need, given them the foundation of a nation?
Moses' thoughts raced, but in his shock, he lost all control. His body vibrated with anger and fear. Fear of what would become of his people now that they had so swiftly broken God's commands.
Now, leave me alone so that my anger can burn against them, and I can destroy them. Then I will make you into a great nation.
God's words of anger stopped Moses' racing thoughts. Had God just asked Moses to leave him alone? And did he truly just promise to make Moses into a great nation like Abraham?
That would be going backward.
Moses thought these things to himself. What of the promises to his people? Start over after all they'd been through? Though Moses knew he'd be safe, the thought of failure, his failure, made him sick. Anger shifted to panic, and in desperation, he instinctively turned to bargaining.
My God, why does your anger burn against your people? The ones you brought out of Egypt with great power and a strong hand. Why should the Egyptians say he brought them out only to kill them in the mountains and erase them from the earth? Turn from your fierce anger. Relent this disaster you planned for your people. Remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, Israel.
You swore to them, I will make your offspring as numerous as the stars and give them this land to inherit forever. Do you remember?
Moses clung to that last question like a lifeline. He'd already failed as Israel's leader. He could not fail now as their advocate before God. If God had chosen him for this purpose, it indeed had to count for something. It just had to.
Go, leave me, return to the people of Israel.
Moses was amazed that God had relented, responding to his pleas. Perhaps this had been the Lord's plan all along. He could have sworn he heard a note of satisfaction in his tone. Did God need to see Moses' loyalty to his people? Well, Moses was now even more determined to set things right.
A calf? Have they broken their covenant so quickly, so blatantly?
Anger rekindled as he carefully lifted the stone tablets and descended the mountain, leaving behind the dark cloud that had been his shelter these 40 days. Hoshea sat cross-legged on a stone, whittling a rough four-legged figure, unsure of what it was becoming. His new blade, a gift from the blacksmith after the Amalekite battle, was finer than his old hunting knife from Egypt. He paused, straining to hear. Was that shouting? He frowned. Camped just below the dense cloud covering the mountain peak, he knew Moses was inside, communing with God. It had been 40 days and nights, and Moses hadn't needed the provisions Hoshea had hunted and kept ready. The distant cries grew louder. Hoshea tossed the whittled figure into his campfire, where it caught quickly, joining others he'd carved out of idle waiting. Yes, those were shouts from the camp below. His stomach tightened. An invader, perhaps? The snap of a branch behind him made him turn sharply, knife in hand. Moses had returned. Relief flooded Hoshea, and he quickly sheathed his knife. Questions sprang to mind, but Moses' unreadable expression stopped him. Moses carried 2 stone tablets with inscriptions on both sides. Hoshea wondered about their origin, but Moses pressed forward, barely acknowledging him. Scrambling, Hoshea stamped out his fire and gathered his supplies, determined not to be left behind.
Lord Moses!
No response. Hoshea jogged after him to make up the distance between them.
Do you hear the shouting? What do you think is happening? Could you see from your vantage point on the mountain? I think those are the sounds of war coming up from the camp.
It's not the sound of war. That's no victory cry, or a cry of defeat. What you're hearing is the sound of singing.
Hoshea strained to listen. Yes, there was a rhythmic, melodic quality to the sounds drifting up. He tried asking Moses more, but his leader's urgent silence spoke volumes, unsettling him more than the growing clamor. As they descended, Hoshea began to hear horns, strings, drums, and unmistakably, singing. A celebration? But for what? Moses' face remained inscrutable, though anger, determination, and something like torment flickered across it. What did he know that Hoshea didn't? They continued in silence until they reached the camp's outskirts, where the sounds and smells of feasting and revelry washed over them. Hoshea's mouth watered, but something was off. Why was this happening? A sense of dread crept over him, and he braced himself for what felt like an imminent collision. Each step confirmed Israel's grave betrayal, compounding Moses' anger. He knew he should acknowledge Hoshea, dazed and trotting by his side, but he couldn't see beyond the mounting, blinding fury threatening to break his composure. Moses' knuckles were white on the stone tablets, and his fingers were numb from his grip. Nothing could have prepared him for the scene as he entered camp. A drunken madness had overtaken the people. It was like the destruction of Sodom come to life. Immorality, violence, and wild dancing filled every corner. The closer he and Hoshea drew to the center, the worse it grew, with no one sparing him a glance. Hoshea's shock was plain. But Moses was already consumed by fury. God had warned him, but seeing it firsthand ignited his indignation. Drumbeats echoed his racing heart, and in the center of it all was an altar before a crude golden calf. His brother and nephew were nowhere to be found. How could they have led Israel into such blatant idolatry? Moses' anger reached a breaking point. How could all their suffering, waiting, and survival have led to this? And beneath the rage was a gnawing guilt. This was his failure. Even if it wasn't his hand that molded the calf, he had appointed the leaders who allowed it. Where had he gone wrong? How could his people betray him like this? But he couldn't spiral into self-doubt now. This injustice demanded correction. The betrayers would pay. He'd cleanse the camp as God had cleansed Sodom, leaving only those who could be reformed. Moses marched up to the stony outcrop hanging over the camp. He peered down at all of them. The skies were dark and swirling, mimicking the anger brewing in Moses' heart.
You stiff-necked people!
With fury, Moses lifted the stone tablets high above his head, shouting as he smashed them down. They descended down into the revelry like a meteor and shattered, fragments striking the musicians and dancers. Everything went silent, and all eyes turned to Moses. The people swayed as the effects of the wine faded under his glare.
What have you done?
The tension in the air was so thick you could cut it with a blade, and it was so silent that the only sound was Moses' ragged breath.
What have you done?
Moses marched down and shoved his way through the crowd. He stepped up to the altar and peered down at the pathetic golden idol they had made for themselves. Moses spat on it. People gasped, earning them another violent shout from Moses. He held up the idol to them.
So, this is what you replaced the Lord with? A 3-foot-tall cow? The God who parted seas and sent fire down from heaven, replaced by a bovine that can fit in a child's knapsack.
Moses took the golden calf, hauled it off its pedestal, and smashed it on the ground before his now silent people. He flung the pieces into the blazing fires, and all of Israel watched as the gold and wooden components of the idol crackled and melted down.
Where's Aaron? Where is her? What madness has overcome you all? Have you not a shred of decency? Integrity? Where is your loyalty?
The crowd trembled and whimpered before him at that, but no one dared offer up any answers. Hoshea was similarly shaken. Disgust had settled into his features as he stood behind Moses and watched the scene unfold. Moses turned to him and roared,
Go and find my elders. Find Aaron and her and bring them to me at once. Search in every tent and under every bedroll until you find the cowards.
Hoshea flinched at the harshness of Moses' words, but he did not delay in carrying out his orders. At last, Aaron, dragged by the persistently annoying Hoshea, was thrown at Moses' feet. Miriam trailed reluctantly behind, ghost-like, her eyes puffy and bloodshot. Aaron peered up at his brother, feeling utterly alone, too stunned to speak.
Moses,
And where is her?
They would not say, and I haven't been able to find him anywhere.
Aaron kept his eyes fixed on the ground, refusing to look at the faint crimson stain where Hur's body had lain hours before. Miriam choked out a sob, gesturing to the spot. Moses and Hoshea gasped as they realized what had happened.
What? By whose hand?
We don't know. The mob took him down. He tried to stop the people. but they turned on him.
Moses then turned his focus back to Aaron, who was still collapsed on the ground before him. His shock quickly turned to anger as he hurled his accusation at Aaron.
What did these people do to you that You've led them into such grave sin.
Don't let your anger burn, my brother. You know the people are bent on evil.
Aaron shot a sharp look at Tobiah in the crowd. He would make sure Tobiah paid for his nephew's murder and take any blame he could shift his way. Aaron wasn't going down for this. He'd only done what was necessary to pacify the people's unruliness.
You know how they get when they're anxious. They came to me saying, "Make gods for us to lead us, because as for Moses, who brought us out of Egypt, we don't know what's happened to him."
So you made them an idol? To replace God?
They were fearful. There were even rumors of mutiny. I did what I thought would unite them in your absence. I feared for my life and for hers.
Miriam's sobs intensified at Aaron's words, and he was forced to speak over the sound. It sickened Aaron, but he forced himself to keep up his bravado.
So I said, "Bring your gold." And then I threw it into the fire. And then out came this calf.
Out came this calf? Did it trot out or crawl?
Well, it came out, but it was only meant to be a symbol, Moses, a reminder of your leadership. I organized the worship of our God, not this idol. But these people, they quickly lost sight of that and slipped back into the old ways. Frankly, I'm as horrified as you.
Still on his knees, Aaron held Moses' gaze, waiting for his brother's judgment. Though Moses' rage was intense, Aaron sensed something shift, a silent struggle flickering in his eyes. Moses flexed his hands, and Aaron felt a queasiness rise, as if Moses had just bargained for his life with God. He couldn't bring himself to admit his failure, pride weighing his words down, even as shame settled in his heart. Moses' fury toward his brother and his grief for Hur surged, meeting the righteous anger of his God rising in his mind. At that moment, he sensed the Lord's intent to strike down Aaron and the people. Biting back his anger, Moses strengthened his resolve from the mountain, pleading silently for Aaron and the people. They were out of control, and he would need to see who could return to reason. Tearing his gaze from his stubborn brother, he stepped back and addressed the disgraced Israelites.
Whoever is for our God, come to me!
A tense stillness hung in the air. Then, cautiously, a group on the edge of the altar timidly stepped forward, mostly from Moses' tribe, the Levites. From what he could tell, they seemed more or less innocent of the drunken revelry he had witnessed, though they hadn't stopped the idol worship. Moses watched as Nadab and Abihu emerged from the crowd and helped their father to his feet. The trio approached, ashamed, with Miriam joining them, her face now stoic and determined. Hoshea took his place on Moses' right, offering a reassuring look. The others hesitated, their guilt apparent, uncertain of what to do.
Do not come forward if you're unsure where your loyalties lie. You have worshipped before an idol. If you still wish for an earthen leader, I will only tell you this once. You will not find one here. I follow only the true God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He will not share worship.
A few more repentant souls joined the mostly Levite group, while the rest stood uncertain, perhaps wondering if they would be presented with another choice, or possibly regretting their choices. Moses turned his back on the lost Israelites and addressed those now standing with him.
Now, listen carefully. This is what our God, the God of Israel, says. Every man fasten his sword to his side. Go back and forth throughout the camp, from entrance to entrance, and each of you kill his brother, his friend, and his neighbor.
Audible gasps went up in the crowd before and behind him. The Levites and others who stood before him looked apprehensive as Moses heard the commotion of what was surely fleeing men and women behind him.
Go. You've been given your command. Come back to me here at dawn. cut anyone down who worshiped at the foot of the idol or is not repentant.
Moses motioned for Hoshea to follow him, strode over to a boulder, and sat himself upon it.
Hoshea, bring me fresh water and food. I need to eat after my stay on the mountain. Be quick about it. Do not tarry or entangle yourself in the violence of the camp.
Hoshea inclined his head and ran off to obey. Moses watched as those who deemed themselves faithful cut down their brothers, friends, and neighbors. Moses trusted God to judge who should live or die, but his anger was still burning at the people's failure. He sat in tense silence until Hoshea returned safely. Side by side, they watched as the Israelites exacted God's justice upon one another. Aaron kept his sons and Miriam close at the camp's edge, determined to survive the bloody chaos unleashed by his brother's sentence of justice. He hadn't survived slavery and desert trials to become collateral damage now. Unarmed, he wasn't about to risk crossing camp for his weapons, but Nadab and Abihu had their hunting knives. The brothers flanked him and Miriam. It was better than nothing. Just then, Tobiah stumbled around the tent corner, clutching a bloody gash in his side. Blood slicked down his leg as he slipped, perhaps still drunk. Aaron smirked. Miriam gripped Aaron's shoulder in recognition. It was as if their God had hand-delivered their vengeance for Hur's murder. Tobiah, unaware of them, sank into the shadows to hide. Aaron's eyes glinted with revenge as he seized Abihu's knife and stalked forward. He drove the blade into Tobiah's back and wrenched his head back to meet his eyes. Fear and understanding flashed in Tobiah's gaze as Aaron leaned in to whisper,
"The man of the people. It is right that I should bring you to justice for your crimes in leading us astray."
Tobiah tried to choke out final words, but only foamy, bloody spittle emerged from his gaping mouth as Aaron twisted the knife further into his back. His eyes glazed and life left them. Aaron shoved him forward with his knife and wiped the blood on his cloak. He then shrank back into the shadows with his family to wait out the rest of the night. 3,000 Israelites lay dead by day's end. At dawn, the survivors returned to the center of camp, but Moses had left before sunrise to climb the mountain again, leaving them to clean up the carnage. Exhausted, he knelt before God as he had for the last 40 days, before everything had gone so wrong.
My God, these people have committed a grave sin. They did indeed make a god of gold for themselves.
Moses paused, recalling the words he had planned on his climb.
Now, if you would only forgive their sin. But if not, please erase me from the book you've written.
The weight of failure plagued him. If he couldn't teach or lead these people in God's ways, he would rather die than watch their downfall and shame. Finally, the answer came.
Whoever has sinned against me, I will erase from my book. Now go. Lead the people to the place I told you about. I will go before you. But on the day I settle accounts, I will hold them accountable for their sin.
God's presence receded. There was nothing more to say. It seemed that the people would still be punished for this crime against their God, but Moses would still lead them until that day. He would also be responsible for preparing the innocents to follow the commandments and laws. It would be them who would take the promised land. When Moses returned to camp over the following days, news reached his tent that a voracious plague had inflicted the people. This was one sign he did not need to interpret for them. Justice was being enacted on the remaining guilty Israelites for their crimes against their God.
This is Ashley Canetti from the Ben and Ashley I Almost Famous podcast. It feels like everyone is talking about GLP-1s these days. Those are Ozempic and semaglutide. And with Future Health, you can find out if they're right for you too. Maybe you feel like you've been struggling with your weight for years, and no matter how much you diet and exercise, you just don't feel healthy. Just go to tryfh.com to find out if weight loss meds are right for you. Future Health is not a healthcare services provider. Meds are prescribed at provider's discretion. Results may vary. Sponsored by Future Health.
Creativity doesn't wait. It moves, shifts, evolves, just like you. And with the Yoga PC from Lenovo, your tools finally keep up. Stunning, smart, and sustainably sourced, Yoga PCs from Lenovo are designed to amplify your creativity with AI-powered performance. Whether you're sketching, editing, animating, or composing, yoga moves with you, adapting to your creativity, to your rhythm. With beautiful displays and the flexibility to shift from laptop to tablet, yoga unlocks new ways to inspire and create. Because at Lenovo, we believe your tools should fuel your flow, not hold you back. Yoga PCs from Lenovo support you at every step of your creative journey. So check out lenovo.com/yoga and supercharge your creativity with yoga. Lenovo. Empowering creators everywhere.
The ship's drifting out of control. Get out of there now.
What happened? His cord snapped. Some called it impossible.
Okay, Dave, I don't know where I am.
Others call it a miracle.
Son, no, he's not.
Focus Features presents the inspirational true story
I got an idea.
that kept the world breathless.
This isn't working.
You can do this, buddy.
Starring Woody Harrelson.
Now!
And Simu Liu.
I'm not losing a diver today.
Last Breath, based on a true story. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13. Only in theaters this Friday.
That was a very powerful journey. Listening to the story of Moses and the Israelites, my heart is heavy with the weight of human frailty. It makes me wonder about the moments in my own life when I've turned away from what is holy for what is fleeting. The image of Moses smashing the tablets is etched in my mind, a symbol of broken covenant and shattered trust, but also a reminder of the chance for repentance, for teshuvah that is always before us. May we carry the lessons of this story into our own lives, remaining steadfast even when the path seems uncertain. Have you ever stood on the precipice, called to battle for faith, summoned to rise and act? Our world often seems set against the teachings of God's word, doesn't it? Society threatens to throw out the still, small voice within us. When it all seems too much to bear, I often find solace in those who came before us. I think about the generations who stood unwavering against the darkness. I think of the greatest generation who bravely faced the Nazis in World War II. I think of the Jewish pioneers who drained swamps and forged the modern Israel with their bare hands, that they themselves made the desert bloom, and God blessed it. And I think of my Abba, my father, Rabbi Yael Eckstein of blessed memory. He answered God's call to build bridges of understanding between Christians and Jews. He persevered even when he was met with very strong opposition. These were all ordinary people, just like you and me, my friends, but their greatness, it laid in their choice to heed God's call. In today's episode, we witness one of Israel's darkest hours, the making of the golden calf. Moses descends from the mountain to find chaos and idolatry. God's voice, once so clear, seems lost in the revelry. Moses, in righteous anger, shatters the tablets. The covenant is broken. And when he confronts Aaron, Aaron sees only a lost cause, a society given over to evil. But Moses stands firm, issuing a call to action. Whoever is for the Lord, come to me, he says. And the Levites, a small but steadfast group, rally to his side. Their courage turns back the tide of sin, restoring God's covenant with Israel. Like the Levites, we are all called to heed God's call. We're all called to stand up and say what they said. Whoever is for the Lord, come to me. In these challenging times, may we all rise to God's call, uphold the values of the Torah, and carry forth the legacy of those who stood firm before us. There's one question that I've always asked myself when I read the story of the golden calf. Why did Moses break the tablets? Well, Jewish tradition has provided many reasons, but the one I like best was given by Rabbi Meir HaKohen, the rabbi of Dvinsk in the early 1900s. He points out that as holy as the tablets were, their holiness came from the chosen people to whom they were given. And when the people sinned so seriously, even the tablets lost their holiness. Rabbi Meir HaKohen suggests that Moses was afraid that the people would do with the tablets what they had just done with the golden calf, that they would say that the tablets were holy, despite their unholy behavior. Because we all know that we have the ability to sanctify something or to take out the holiness from it. There's only one thing in the entire universe that's permanently holy, and that's God himself. So Moses broke the tablets to forcefully, dramatically teach the people that for the tablets to be holy, they must be holy. This is such an important message for us today, isn't it? For things in our lives to be holy, we must act in ways to deserve their holiness, to imbue them in holiness, to fill them with holiness. At home, at work, at play, at our church, or in our synagogue, if we try to be holy, then our tablets and our surroundings will be holy. Before we leave the chosen people in the wake of the golden calf, I want to talk about one more thing from this story. Actually, from before the golden calf was made. At the end of Genesis 31, as Moses still stands on Sinai, God gives him a final commandment, a covenant, the covenant of the Sabbath. The Sabbath. It's called Shabbat in Hebrew. It's a Berit Olam, an everlasting covenant. Wow, that's a deep concept. Shabbat is an everlasting covenant, and we have to ask ourselves, why? Well, it's because every week we remind ourselves through Shabbat of what is most important and everlasting. Very few commandments are called a covenant, but Shabbat is a covenant because by stepping away from the day-to-day grind, by turning off our smartphones, and by spending time with loved ones, we reconnect with what matters most. And in the Bible, in these 10 commandments, we're told to do it every week. This makes it an eternal part of our lives, an everlasting covenant. People often wonder about the remarkable survival of the Jewish people. They wonder how we retained our identity and way of life for thousands of years as we were scattered across the globe as a tiny minority with no power and no land. And I'll tell you, my friends, this is the secret. The secret of Jewish survival is this everlasting covenant, this Brit Olam, Shabbat. And I'll leave you now with this blessing that we recite over our children every Shabbat. Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, Yair Hashem panav elecha v'chunecha, Yisa Hashem panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you. May he be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Amen.
You can listen to The Chosen People with Yael Eckstein ad-free by downloading and subscribing to the pray.com app today. This pray.com production is only made possible by our dedicated team of creative talents. Steve Katina, Max Bard, Zach Schellebarger, and Ben Gammon are the executive producers of The Chosen People with Yael Eckstein, edited by Alberto Avila, narrated by Paul Coltofianu. Characters are voiced by Jonathan Cotton, Aaron Salvato, Sarah Seltz, Mike Reagan, Stephen Ringwald, Sylvia Zaradok, and the opening prayer is voiced by John Moore. Music by Andrew Morgan Smith, written by Bree Roseley and Aaron Salvato. Special thanks to Bishop Paul Lanier, Robin Van Etten, Caleb Burrows, Jocelyn Fuller, and the team at International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. You can hear more pray.com productions on the pray.com app, available on the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. If you enjoyed The Chosen People with Yael Eckstein, please rate and leave a review.
This is Jenny Garth from I Do Part 2. Everyone's talking about GLP-1s, like Ozempic, semaglutide. With Future Health, you can find out if they're right for you, too. Just go to tryfh.com, that's tryfh.com, and find out if weight loss meds are right for you in just 3 minutes. Future Health is not a healthcare services provider. Meds are prescribed at provider's discretion. Results may vary. Sponsored by Future Health.
Creativity doesn't wait. It moves, shifts, evolves, just like you. And with the Yoga PC from Lenovo, your tools finally keep up. Stunning, smart, and sustainably sourced, Yoga PCs from Lenovo are designed to amplify your creativity with AI-powered performance. Whether you're sketching, editing, animating, or composing, yoga moves with you, adapting to your creativity, to your rhythm. With beautiful displays and the flexibility to shift from laptop to tablet, yoga unlocks new ways to inspire and create. Because at Lenovo, we believe your tools should fuel your flow, not hold you back. Yoga PCs from Lenovo support you at every step of your creative journey. So check out lenovo.com/yoga and supercharge your creativity with yoga. Lenovo. Empowering creators everywhere.
With the best all-inclusive vacation deals to Mexico and the Caribbean, booking your getaway with Cheap Caribbean Vacations means you have more freedom to do your deal. Whether you want to enjoy snorkeling, endless margaritas, and more, or simply soak up the sun and sand in a tropical paradise, Cheap Caribbean Vacations has your deal for that. Plan and book the exact getaway you want at exactly the right price for you by using our exclusive Budget Beach Finder. Or find a featured all-inclusive package to Oasis Hotels and Resorts and do your deal at cheapcaribbean.com.
The new year's here. It's the perfect time to refresh those household essentials and score some cashback rewards with Colgate-Palmolive. From toothpaste to dish soap, chances are you've got Colgate-Palmolive products on your shopping list and in your house right now. We're talking brands like Colgate, Soft Soap, Palmolive, Irish Spring, Fabuloso, and Tom's of Maine. And right now, you can get up to a $10 digital Visa prepaid card when you buy up to $30 of Colgate-Palmolive products. Here's how it works. Spend $20 on their products, get $5. Spend $30, get a $10 reward. All you do is shop your favorite brands, snap a pic of your receipt, and upload it to cprewards.com. It's so easy. That's cprewards.com. So grab what you need, or maybe try something new, and get rewarded just for doing your usual shopping. And start your year fresh by earning cashback rewards with Colgate-Palmolive. Rewards available while supplies last. Limits apply. U.S. only. 1/1/25 through 3/31/25. For full terms and conditions, visit cprewards.com.
Do you own a business that's ready to thrive? It's time to let Intuit QuickBooks take things like unpaid invoices and tracking expenses off your plate so you can take things to the next level. Intuit QuickBooks is an all-in-one business platform that can help with those day-to-day tasks like invoicing and expenses. Manage and grow your business all in one place. Intuit QuickBooks, your way to money. Money movement services are provided by Intuit Payments, Inc., licensed as a money transmitter by the New York State Department of Financial Services.